All right, it is Monday. We have our councillors coming in and kind of trying to figure out where everybody's going to sit. We've got Sam Austin pinch hitting today. Becky Kent was going to join us, but she had other things that needed her attention. And Virginia Hinch joins us, District 8, Halifax Peninsula North. I've just met her about 10 seconds ago. And she's new to the studio, so we're going to have to get her school. Sam Austin is working here as an associate producer right now. There's the mic. Pull that mic in. There you go. Thank you. And sit right in tight, close to that mic. There you go. Okay. All right, Sam Austin, you know what you're doing here, eh?
It's good to know I have a future if another career path.
You can be the associate producer of the show. How's that sound? You have to
Vanessa does a great job.
Well, no, she's the executive producer.
My boss, eh?
She's the executive producer. You'd be her underling.
Well, there's certainly many a worse boss out there to have than good old Vanessa.
There you go. That's right. All right, so Sam Austin again, District 5, Dartmouth Centre. Sam, thanks for coming in, of course.
I'm delighted to.
All right, and Virginia Hinch, District 8, Halifax Peninsula North.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you as well.
Yeah, that's right. I met you and less than 10 seconds later, we're on the air talking on the radio. How's that sound?
You know what? I'm sorry apologies for my tardiness. It was the Uber's fault.
Oh, that's okay. No problem. No problem. We won't hold it against you this time.
Thank you so much. I try to be at least 15 minutes early.
There you go. Okay, so Sam, what's cooking in your world? The Veinotte club's getting some good news, good announcement from the feds.
Yeah, that was a wonderful announcement to be at there on Friday. Yeah. That's a major contribution to that project. And you pair it with the municipal contribution we put in of almost $500,000, and the province, they've been very generous on this project too. So it's been all three orders of government paddling, if you will, in the same direction on this one. So it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Virginia, what's cooking in your area?
What's cooking in my area? So much, I would have to say. You know, the Windsor Street Exchange just got approved or to be done. Yeah. Not so much for it as going forward, but we'll see what happens. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. We'll hope that it works out for everybody. So
this area here is your constituency, is it?
District 8, yes.
Yeah, we're sitting in District 8.
Yes, we are.
All right. What about the forum? What's going on with the forum? You must get that question asked quite a bit, do you? Or maybe not.
Not too much. As we still have a few years out before the forum is even touched yet. So we're just meeting, going over things.
But there were talks about renovating it and the facade and the $100 million price tag and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yes. So still in talks with the facade and everything, the heritage component of it all. Yeah. So we're hoping that, we can come to some solutions and hopefully start the project.
Yeah.
Design work's underway now. Heritage-wise, too, I think there's lots of possibility to do right by that building without necessarily saving every kind of deteriorating brick. I live in a house it's not officially a heritage property, but it's 1870s. And if you went around the exterior, how many times have the shingles been replaced over the years? It's more the, trying to do good by the design than necessarily keep every single scrap that's at the end of its life.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, this is the way it works, folks. Give us a call if you'd like to chat with one of the councillors or both. Virginia Hinch, Sam Austin here in studio. And the way to do so is dial 902-405-6000, just like always, 902-405-6000. That is the way to take part. I would think, Virginia, that I don't know if this is accurate or not, but when it comes to growth, this area, the north end here, seems to be, is blowing up with buildings, and the growth is really, I guess, good but bad too, right? Because it comes with that challenges, right?
It does, definitely.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that I get a lot of questions about with regards to density and height and everything, and the new buildings that are coming into play, that are, in certain parts of the community that don't feel like they belong in those areas, due to the density and the height of some of the buildings that are the developers are asking for. So I am trying to, deal with that with some integrity and some. Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
How do I deal with that?
Yeah.
One question at a time. And one, it's hard to discuss something, especially when it's hasn't been brought to council as of yet. It's still in the the what do you want to say, the early phases of things before council even approves anything. So we're still in the plannings. So
Right.
yeah, I would say that.
But affordability, I mean, it's front and center still. I saw the story on the CBC this morning. Some of the most affordable renting housing in Nova Scotia is rapidly becoming less so, according to Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation data analyzed by the CBC. This is especially pronounced in Halifax, where, according to the data, the median rent for apartments built in 1979 or earlier had increased more than 40% in 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, Sam, I mean, you're a planner. That's unsustainable, is it not?
Yeah, so I mean, I see that in my community. So I think about like your 1970s brick boxes, kind of 3-4 stories up in Dartmouth North. And if you drive around the community, you can pick them out, which ones are now no longer affordable. Just look for metal cladding and black frame windows. And that's a place that's still fundamentally the same building, but has been renovated and is no longer affordable. And that rental stock, the challenge we have, it's gone, right? Even with more supply being built, the rents in those places, they're not going to come down, right? So we've really lost permanently a large section of what we were really relying on, private sector, de facto affordable housing. And fundamentally, what we need to get back to, and there's been some good announcements from the province on this, we need to get back to building public housing.
Yeah.
You want something affordable, you need government, right?
Okay,
Like stuff can't be built affordable because of cost. You look at labor, cost of buying, cost of borrowing. There's a reason why stuff is, $2,000 a month. And, I know sometimes it's an easy answer to say, well, it's all greed. Well, it's no, these are costs to build.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about those who are calling for rent control, like more broad, robust rent control. What's your response to that?
I don't know enough about it. I mean, instinctively, I kind of lean that way that, you should have some predictability, both landlord and tenant, in terms of what things are going to be going forward. But it's not my area of expertise because on the city side, we do planning, we don't do tenancy.
Virginia, what's your take on the provincial government and what potential bigger role it could play in dealing with this?
Well, I believe it can build more housing.
Yeah.
And a lot quicker. So that's I believe that it can, I feel that we should be building more housing, more affordable housing.
Yeah.
Taking 5-10 years out still isn't going to help some folks that are no longer that can afford what's out there right now. So it's yeah.
Yeah. One of the challenges with affordable housing, of course, is getting somebody to build it because you've only got so many contractors and so much talent out there to do it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Sam, that's an issue, eh?
Oh, yes. Labor has definitely been an issue. It's been a big driver of cost as well for the private sector and for anyone looking to build, we've really relied as a society on nonprofits to bridge the gap, right? So, because the private sector just doesn't build affordable housing because they can't. So we're left with nonprofits, which have been doing that. And of course, they're subject to all the same whims of market pricing, labor, construction materials, tariffs, supply disruptions. It's been a heck of a time.
The bottom line is if a contractor can make a certain amount of money building nonprofit or non-public housing, then there's no reason for them to be incentivized to build
There's
public
nowhere
housing.
else that we expect the private sector to solve a public sector problem.
Exactly.
We don't expect the private sector to build hospitals and operate them, to do schools, to do roads. We all recognize that these are public goods that have a public benefit, and we fund them from the public purse. And we should be doing the same thing with affordable housing. And a big chunk of the problem that we're in is 30 years ago, we stopped doing that. The last public housing in this province was in the mid-1990s, and we didn't build anything for the next 30 years. And that has come back to roost.
Yeah, a lot of catch up, right?
A lot of catch up,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. But that said, you got to start somewhere, right?
You do.
Yeah.
And there's been some good announcents, right? The province has committed. We need more.
Yeah.
But again, there are some developers, if they want to have a good heart and build some private affordable housing, they can do that as well.
Well, have a good heart, but they're business people and they want to make money, right?
I know they're business people and they want to make money, but still, I believe that it can be done. I believe that they can do it.
Okay. 902-405-6000. David, hello.
Hi there. I have a question for Virginia Hinch about the Bloomfield Centre. The fielding building that caught fire and was demolished. Who's paying for that demolition and who's undertaking the work? Is it being undertaken by the city and they're going to build a private developer for that work, or is it sort of, did they order the private developer to take down that building? And then also, I've noticed Jersey barriers going up around the perimeter, at least on Agricola Street. Do you know what purpose they serve and sort of what the future is for the rest of the two buildings on the property?
So right now, the property is still owned by the developer, and they have at least another year with the buyback agreement if it does happen. With regards to the fire that happened, no, we don't want the taxpayer to pay for that. We want the developer to pay for that.
So is that work being undertaken by the developer, or is it currently being sort of undertaken by the municipality and they're going to bill the developer for it?
I'm not
or did they sort of ordered?
So I believe that we're still doing some of the work right now because we wanted to make sure that the building was totally cleared before we gave it back to the developer. But no, we plan on billing the developer.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Where are you with budget deliberations? Who's coming in this week, Sam?
So we actually wrapped up the bulk of our deliberations on Wednesday last week. We finished our review of all the departments, so everybody has now presented. So the next step in the budget process is we go to what's called the adjustment list. So all through the process, as each department is presented, councillors have moved, potential opportunities to spend more money to do a bit more in terms of services in different areas, or potential cuts onto what we call an adjustment list. And so at the end of that process, we then look at that entire list and decide, well, what do we want to do? Do we want to do any of these? Do we want to move forward with any of this? And with that big kind of final championship final of all of the budget season is coming after March break. So that's where we are.
Okay, so when might we know what the final numbers are and the tax rate and all that stuff? So
right now, the staff proposed budget, it was something like 7.6%, which for the average home is about $180 more a year. Mm-hmm. Council, the total sum potential of all the extras we moved onto the list, there's a couple items that don't have a dollar figure attached to them yet. We need staff to come back with some more information, is about $23. So if that budget went through, you'd be talking between $189 and $200 more a year for the average home owner, depending on what council chooses. Now, at our last council meeting, the mayor threw a bit of a wild card in, put forward a motion to try and limit things down to just the assessment lift, not increasing the actual tax rate. And there was a couple of ideas that he proposed to do that. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. And we're going to have that discussion debate to come. And I don't know exactly what that would mean in terms of that, 200 or 180. If the mayor got his way, it would probably be, it would be lower, but not hugely lower. Okay, so do you fundamentally support the mayor's ambitions here? Some of it. The two that I have real concern about that are still up for discussion is the idea of reducing the climate change tax. That would be, to me, the beginning of HRM potentially not following through on the plan that we've committed, and climate change is so important. We can't not do that. So I don't support that piece. The other one that I have concern about is the homelessness supports are on the options list, and to me, those are mission critical. I've had people die in my district each and every one of the last few winters, preventable deaths, and we could do something about that if we work with the province, and we've got some options here.
Okay, Virginia, what's your take on this?
I totally agree with Sam. We were on the same page, so yes. So hopefully, those things are not taken.
Okay, so when it comes to the Halifax tax, I guess if we could call it that, that's where that would come from, correct?
Yeah, about $3 million there, and I think that's the wrong place for council to be looking for savings. There's, the rest of it I think is a fine discussion to be had, but climate change is one of those. You look at where we are as a society. We're struggling with affordability. We're struggling with housing and homelessness, and we're struggling with climate change. These are the kind of three major issues of our time. And you can't address the one by leaving the other two by the wayside. And so I think there's room in the budget to economize elsewhere. Those two items should not be where we get money.
Okay, I guess for some though, they may say, look, you have people who are struggling in the here and now with housing, with affordability. You got infrastructure which needs attention right away, and some people would suggest that should come ahead of of a climate tax. You disagree with that?
I would just disagree with that. I think there's other places in the budget we can make up money if we need to. It should not come at the expense of future generations and the kind of world that we're going to leave our kids.
Okay, so how much total would the tax?
So the mayor had proposed cutting it by a third, which would be about $3 million.
$3 million. Okay. And Virginia, you don't agree with that? You said earlier.
No, I do agree with what Sam is
No,
saying.
you don't agree with the cut.
Oh, no, I do agree with the cut.
No, the 3%.
Oh, no, I do not.
No. Oh, the third. Okay. Fair enough. 902-405-6000. Give us a call, folks, if you'd like to chat with one of the councillors or both. 902-405-6000. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues with your calls when we come back. All right, here with our councillors, Virginia Hinch and Sam Austin, taking your calls as well. 902-405-6000 if you've got a question or two for the councillors or a comment. 902-405-6000. Paul, hello.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for taking my question, councillors. The question I have for you, I had the unpleasant experience this weekend of having my car booted up in Chain Lake Drive at the Wendy's and Tim Hortons up there. And it was like at supper time, I went to the La Rouge restaurant in the Halifax Tower Hotel. And there's not a lot of parking along the front of that place. So the two parking lots are joined, and the Timmy's and the Wendy's, and it's well marked, but we were running a few minutes late. You know, I was in the wrong and parked in a spot where it said, the whole parking lot says, like, you know, this is Wendy's or this is Tim's, but in the bottom it's just in little red letters about, you know, your car can be towed or can be stopped from moving, kind of thing, I guess booted. So when I did some research on Sunday, I found out there's two companies in Halifax that can do about 50 parking lots. And Moncton, back in 2018, brought in legislation to say that these guys can only charge like $45, you know, because in Nova Scotia it's unregulated. So is there going to be any legislation brought forward as far as regulating these guys? Because they charged me $115 plus tax, which is $132. So my evening out just wasn't a very good one. So I just was curious if there was anything. And the other thing I saw was it was supposed to come up in committee on the 23rd of January. That would be discussed under the Transportation Committee. So I was just curious if anything came out of that.
Okay, Sam?
Yeah, this would have been, you know, she's now retired, Councillor Blackburn's cause at council. We've actually, it's not regulated in the province, but we do have a city bylaw that sets out what you're allowed to do, including the fine amount. I seem to remember it being about $100, so $115 sounds accurate to me with what they're allowed to charge. And it also includes provisions about where requiring signage, the size of signage, all of that, so that, you know, folks aren't caught unaware. I don't know off the top of my head whether the lot there would be in compliance. You could call 311 if and someone could go take a look at that. But it is regulated.
It's well marked. Like, I'm not arguing that point.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the whole point was you went out for an evening, first time going to that restaurant, and I wasn't the only one. And that's the thing. These guys are lurking in the shadows, because there was about a half a dozen or so cars that were also booted within, like, between the Timmy's and the Wendy's.
Yeah.
So, and these guys were, as soon as I phoned the number, they said, go wait in your car, they'll be there in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So these guys are like little piranhas waiting, right? And I got the hotspot parking thing on my phone. I pay for, you know, parking when I go to the Mooseheads down. I got no problem paying for parking and stuff like that. But when you're getting a ridiculous fine of over $100, you know, regulation, like a regular parking ticket, like, is what, $45 around downtown?
Yep.
So that's what it should be. $115 is ridiculous.
Any comment,
Maybe
Virginia?
the bylaw needs to be changed.
Anything you can offer them?
I am not a driver, but I do feel that those are high prices for sure. Yeah, maybe there's something that we can do in council to regulate those
Sam?
and change those prices.
Yeah, I can't recall off the top of my head the work that went into coming up with that price point. I mean, I'd have to go back and take a look at that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm sure a lot of other people would too, because just talking about it at my work this morning, there's a few other stories I heard, like even with the one up on Quinpool, there's a shared parking lot up there, and, you know, some guy just happened to see not going into a business on that side of the shared part of the parking lot, and he turned around and his car was getting booted. So these guys are aggressive, and the thing is too, when you boot a car, you're already defeating the purpose of why you want people not to park there, right? Because the car is now immobile, right?
Okay.
People want you to come in and use their parking lot to go have a burger or something. Now it's blocked with a booted car.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Okay,
you
Paul.
get a regular ticket, you can pay for it, right?
Yeah.
One of the challenges is that it used to be easier to get special constable status. That has really become more challenging over the years. And so if you have a privately owned parking lot, you don't really have any recourse for the most part. You can't write a ticket that will stick. Police, you could call if there's an illegally parked vehicle, but the response time for a parking complaint is understandably very poor. So I get why people have turned, in terms of some of these private lots, have turned to booting as one of the only kind of effective tools that they have.
Well, I just told them, like, and I'm not into the cancel culture. I just won't visit a property that's got that kind of.
You might want to try calling the hotel because, there's probably more than just you. And, maybe there's a possibility of them working this out with their neighbor there where they both share this commercial area.
I went in and talked to them yesterday at the restaurant. And I just gave them some feedback saying if you could actually tell somebody when they're making a reservation that you can use like the underground parking. I found that out after.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm just saying I was giving them feedback. I wasn't ticked off at them.
Yeah, no, it's not their fault.
No. But I just said that's the feedback. They had a sign on the door when you come in, but when you're running a few minutes late for your reservation, you didn't see that, right? So
yeah, I mean,
my bad, but I'm just trying to give you guys feedback.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other people that.
Yeah, I wasn't, Paul. I've been to that restaurant fairly recently, and the parking. Like, I agree with you. Fortunately, we found a spot which was appropriate parking around the corner for the hotel. But if not, I would have done the same thing you did. I just would have found a spot in the shared parking area.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for your time. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us for Councillors on the Hot Seat. We've got Virginia Hinch and Sam Austin here in studio. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back.
Thanks.
All right. Councillors on the Hot Seat in studio here, Sam Austin and Virginia Hinch. 902-405-6000. If you've got a question for the councillors, we'd love to hear from you. 902-405-6000. Samantha, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, you?
Good. I just got a couple things to say about the housing. I used to work for a major property company in Halifax, and the owners donated a ton of money to the province to go towards affordable housing. It was never used.
Wow.
So I think that should be looked into.
Okay.
Like, he's a private developer. He's not in the business of doing public housing, but he goes, hey, I want to do my part, and goes, this is earmarked for this purpose. And the government did nothing with it. So you can't blame the government when private companies are stepping up and donating.
Any comment from either of you on that?
Well, I would like to, if you want to send an email or tell us who the developer is, or so we can have a conversation. I would love to know.
Yeah, Page Property Management.
Page Property Management.
Like, they are one of the kindest people, like the owners, their family. Amazing guys. I can't speak highly enough about them.
Did they sit down with the province and have a discussion how?
I don't know about that part, but I know they did donate a large portion of money to say that we want to help develop public housing, and it was never used.
Was there an amount on that? Do you know what the amount was?
I don't know the amount. I just know it was a lot of money.
Okay.
Maybe it's still in process, because I know they did announce some new public housing builds, but they haven't actually broken ground yet.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I live in an apartment in the city, And the building is not new. It's several, I want to say at least 20 or 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You should not be paying the same price as a new build. The building has been built. You're just maintaining it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to look at some sort of rent control, you should look at age of buildings and have they been updated and the cost of those materials. Yes, I know things are expensive now, but you shouldn't be charging the same cost as a luxury building.
Well, is it the same cost? How do you know it's the same cost? I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way.
Well, we got a place going up next to us on the Bedford Highway. It's going to be a gorgeous property. I moved into my apartment about 7 years ago, and you cannot get a 2-bedroom for what we pay for. You can't even get a bachelor for what we pay for. A bachelor in my building is like $2,000.
Oh.
So you got to look at that stuff. It's crazy.
Okay. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care. 902-405-6000. So this lends itself to the conversation we were having earlier about rent control. But I think perhaps if the province is going to take measures, you have to, I think, be a bit robust in whatever type of legislation that it is, because to her point, rent control for somebody who's got a 2-bedroom unit or a 2-unit duplex or whatever they're renting out, it's a retirement or the small business owner, as opposed to some of the larger business owners. I think that perhaps rent control or these measures should be a little more mobile. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, like I said before when this came up, it's not my area of expertise, honestly. I don't know all the kinds of ins and outs through it because it's not in the municipal world. Fundamentally, I think both landlord and tenant need to be able to have some predictability in things.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, I know the situation for many of the smaller landlords who, have had that affordable housing stock, kind of the folks who, didn't necessarily raise rents when they could, because they weren't just basing things on, kind of market pricing,
mm-hmm.
right? You're kind of small operators. Given the cost of insurance and property taxes and everything else, maintenance,
mm-hmm.
the way that's all gone, many of them are struggling.
Yeah, that's right.
To keep these places.
So that's the point, Virginia. Housing is something that you've got an expertise in.
Yes.
There are some small, and I call them business owners who have a unit or two or whatever, and this would hurt them. Rent control would hurt them. But there are other larger operators who could clearly use perhaps some of this.
Exactly.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I believe that it can be delved out to certain developers who have the higher ends. I believe that we don't have to go for the small developer.
Yeah.
The person that is trying to make it easy for his tenants to be able to pay rent. So
yeah.
I definitely believe it. We can put it in areas where it needs to be and stop it in other areas.
Yeah.
I think we still have to fundamentally recognize that if we want affordable housing, it comes with government investment, mm-hmm. either directly in public housing or nonprofits, expecting the private sector to provide a public good, i.e.
mm-hmm.
affordable housing.
Yeah.
It's very limited as to how far you can push that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose with that said, I can hear the frustration in people's voices when they share their stories about how rents go up 50-60%. And I get it, and they look to the first line of government for people to kind of protect them and be their advocate, which mm-hmm. is you guys, right, Virginia?
Yes. And I believe, even with the new bills that are coming on, I believe that the people that come to us asking to build these 17, 16-story towers and only want to provide 10% to affordable housing, and it isn't still affordable, doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. Okay. 902-405-6000. Wayne, hello.
Good day, sir. How are you?
Well, you.
And same to the councillors, by the way.
Indeed.
Good day.
Hello.
I'll pick on Todd first.
Good.
Todd.
This is a change.
Yeah. Todd, every time I call you, I get so nervous because it takes me about a half hour to calm down after I call you because I'm so used to talking to the troops and saying what's on my mind. And there's usually a lot of curse words involved. And at one time, the MPs tried to run me for swearing at them. So after 30 years in the military, I only made it to the rank of corporal. And that's another story in itself. But anyway, getting to the councillors here.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, Todd, I am having a cigar.
Oh, good.
To the councillors, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, it's not in my neighborhood. I was hoping my councillor was on this morning, but she's not. What I'm talking about is the Bay Road and the Timberley Village Parkway needs a light at the Bay Road section. It's ridiculous. I mean, you got a major 103 highway there, and this is a branch to come down to the Bay Road for the people that live in the local area. In the morning, all the traffic's outbound. In the evening, there's a lineup of traffic almost back up to Sobeys. So what I'm trying to figure out is, when you come from the Bay Road up from the Armdale Rotary and you pass Tim Hortons and Wendy's on your right, and then you go through that set of lights, and then you get to the subdivision there in Beachville that's newly built, and guess what? They got a set of traffic lights. So how did a subdivision, and there's 3 or 4 large subdivisions out here on the Bay Road, how did this brand new subdivision get a set of traffic lights before the Timberley Village Parkway? And I guess the key word is parkway, and one's called an avenue. The one got less traffic, one got tons of traffic going both ways.
Okay, Sam, how are these things determined?
Yeah, so with the new subdivision, there's always a traffic analysis that would have gone into that, and whatever the conclusion from the engineers is that, well, traffic light here is warranted, and my suspicion is the developer was forced to put that in if it's a new subdivision. It's not, I don't get out to that side of town very often, so I can't visualize it. So this is just kind of me going by gut as to how things work. I would suggest, Wayne, if you're handy, if you want to fire us an email, I'm sure your counselor, I think it would be Nancy Hartling, would look into that for you and try and get to the bottom of it.
I think it's Janet Steele.
Oh, is it Janet?
Janet, yes.
Okay. I'm sure Janet would be happy to look at that.
Definitely.
Well, I got to give her a shout today on a different subject matter, so I'll definitely mention it to her when I'm talking to her. But and not only that Timberley Parkway also needs sidewalks on both sides. It's ridiculous watching seniors walking up to Sobeys with no sidewalk, and they're frail and they could fall as it is. I watched another guy go up there with a wheelchair. He just stayed on the road, and everybody had to go around him. It's crazy. Anyway, cheers, gentlemen.
Okay,
have a
pal.
great day.
Okay,
and ladies, of course.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. EFO, hello, EFO.
Good afternoon. How are you?
We're well.
Doing?
Hello.
Okay. Hey, I have 2 things. One would be really quick. I think that in this country and in this province and in this city specifically, there needs to be a focus on not just what they call affordable housing, because it's affordable for who? Affordable for someone making $200,000 or affordable for someone making $30,000. Those 2 things are not related, and we need something that is not profit driven. So more investment in cooperatives, more investment in just public housing. That's one. Now the personal one.
Here, here.
I appreciate that. That is so true.
Thank you. Now, this one is very personal to me. I only just recently realized this. I had an operation just in November. Thankfully, everything went well. But as a result of that, I have an accessible sticker on my car so that I can park in different places and I can get to my treatments when I need to. What I am noticing is, especially at the YMCA on Spring Garden Road, all the accessible parking right by the YMCA is and also the parking for the accessible bus, they're usually filled with Uber, Eats, taxi drivers. All kinds of people are parking there. None of them have any stickers. And every single day that I go there, I need to go get out of my car, get my cane out, and then go knock on someone's door and tell them to move their car.
You should not have to do that.
No.
That's ridiculous.
One of the drivers said, "Why am I disturbing them? They've been parking every year for 2 years, and this is the first time someone has informed them." I also talked to the restaurants in the area, and they all said that they've told the drivers and the drivers don't listen. I talked to some city officials, that give tickets. They said they can only give it if they see it. And if by the time I call them, if they come, the person's most likely gone. So there's really nothing they can do. So this is I've seen this has happened since November when I needed this, and I started driving again in January. And pretty much almost everywhere I go, there's somebody, usually a delivery driver, and sometimes it's a taxi driver, parked in an accessible place.
So
I don't know what to do to stop this.
So I'll just take the opportunity here because I know, Todd, you've got a lot of listeners who are listening to this broadcast in their delivery vehicle or their cab as they're going about. An accessible spot is not a loading zone.
Right.
Do not use it as a loading zone. That's not its purpose. The caller's example of what this means for his life is exactly why they are not loading zones. So no one should be doing that. He's hit the nail on the head, though, in terms of enforcement, right? Like it's, like whack-a-mole, right? Yeah. People just need not to do that. For us, it's an enforcement challenge. So, I'll send a note over to our parking people just to see if that particular area can get some attention proactively rather than by call.
Yeah.
Okay, UFO?
Oh, last thing. I'm planning to start a campaign, so I'm probably going to register a social media handle and start posting pictures of license plates and everything else, because this needs to stop. And if the authorities can't stop it, maybe we'll name and shame them. But the Ubers, all those companies, they know where the drivers are. They should tell them not to do this. This is completely unacceptable. But thank you guys.
Okay, thanks, UFO. Thanks for the call. Okay, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with the councillors when we come back. All right, so we're chatting with Sam Austin and Virginia Hinch here in studio, 902-405-6000. That is the way to take part. If you've got a question for one of the councillors, again, 902-405-6000. Hello, Jamie.
How are you today?
Doing well.
That's good. I just wanted to call in just for a second to speak to one of the councillors about rent control and that sort of thing, right? So one of the reasons that the market, in this is my opinion, is imperfect here. Well, there's two major reasons. Number one is there's just been a ton of people come into our community, which is great, and number two is the amount of rules and restrictions on building. I guess what I would say is as much as you can, stay out of it. And I know people are screaming at you, but and when I say stay out of it, like deregulate, like get, somebody wants to build a fourplex or a sixplex or a 12plex, just get out of the way, like get them what they need. I mean, there's crazy rules that we have in the city here. One of them is that if you want to put in a subdivision, I believe of 2 or more properties, you have to put 200 feet of road frontage in, right? So that, I believe, came in effect during amalgamation in Dartmouth. And there's a ton of properties out there that are restricted because, the road frontage on a larger tract of land has been sold off. And the owners of the land have kept, the amount of width it would take to get driveways in. This is going back many, many years. And now you don't have the road frontage because they changed the road frontage on all of these landowners who would otherwise build and create lots of homes. So, when you're making regulations, I guess, as a landlord, as an investor, like none of us can see too far into the future, like with any clarity. Yet when our rules and regulations are made, they're made permanent. And I don't know about you, but I can't see that far ahead in my life that I can say with confidence that I've made a permanent investment in one thing. And I believe when any new rule or any new regulation comes out, it comes out with a time limit on it. That at a certain point in time, we're going to revisit this to see if it still applies / is relevant. And all of the above, because we need a loosening up of our society and just let people do what they need to do. And please, get out of the way. Like, as a government, I honestly, it's one of the biggest impediments is just dealing with the various levels of government when you want to get something done. So we could if you could put together a department that would appeal on behalf of people and put in loud variances and things for rules that are, really not that important, that would create tons of new housing for people. So I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Sam, what's your takeaway on that?
Yeah, the caller's not wrong, and it's something we've actually been working a fair bit on, right? Some of the changes with that Housing Accelerator fund has meant that we have, I haven't looked at everybody, but if you go across the country, we would be among the most liberal planning regimes that you have out there now, where everything in the urban core is allowed between 4 and 8 units as of right, which is significant compared to across the country. The big piece that we still need to do is we need to do our suburban plan. All that work with the center plan and the Housing Accelerator has had the most impact on the Peninsula and in the old core of Dartmouth, but we haven't yet finished the work in the suburbs, and the suburbs are a huge part of where our future growth is going to go, and so we really need to finish that suburban plan so we can bring that same removing planning as an impediment, so you keep the good essences of planning, because, there's a reason why you want development to go in certain areas. You don't want to throw the baby out of the bath with the bathwater here, but we do need to make sure that we're not standing in our own way for the housing we need.
Yeah. If I could just leave you with one thought, in the immortal words of Milton Friedman, if you find yourself having an imperfect market, look for government involvement. If you don't find government involvement, look again. You're wrong.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for the call. Eve, hello.
Hi, Todd.
Hi there.
I just wondered if the councillors knew offhand if those pellet shelters cost $37,000 each.
I'm not sure off the top of my head what they cost. The pallets have not been an HRM project; they've been delivered by the province, so I'm not sure what their cost is.
Yeah,
but you certainly want the province to help with social housing.
Yes, I mean, one of the big challenges with the whole housing issue has been, Mayor Savage said it very well when he was in office. The feds have the money, the province has the jurisdiction, and the cities have the problem, and that sums it up to a T.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that such wasteful spending goes on, and to believe that the only place that these pellet shelters could be built was in California. I mean, that's ludicrous. You have extreme waste on the one hand, and then you have governments bulking and trying to get out of building social housing. And when you look at the two together, it seems like an easy fix. Stop wasting our money and put it into what is terribly needed so we don't have homeless people out on the streets, especially in the wintertime.
I agree 100%.
Okay, thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
I would say that the pallets, I mean, even if they are $37,000, the province, what's the old saying? You can have something good, cheap, or quick, but you can't have all three.
Yeah.
I give the province points here for, making the decision to bring those in, because there's a whole bunch of people who are now benefiting by having that stability of a place to be. Councillor Mancini and I got to meet with the organizers for the Pallet Village in Burnside, and it's pretty impressive, actually, the difference it makes in people's lives.
Okay, thanks to both of you for coming in. Sam Austin, thanks for pinch hitting.
Thank you. Delighted.
Thank you.
Okay, and Virginia, thanks for coming in. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Okay, that's Councillors on the Hot Seat. Your calls when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, continuing with your calls, or taking your calls, I should say, 902-405-6000. It's an open hour. What would you like to talk about today? Again, 902-405-6000. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Moscow can't be trusted in any agreement to end its invasion of Ukraine, as European leaders craft plans to rely less on Washington and protect the continent from more incursions by Russian President Vladimir Putin. Of course, this all comes on the heels of that dust-up on Friday in the Oval Office. I guess I think debacle might be a better term, involving J.D. Vance, Trump, and Zelensky, which descended into a bizarre shouting match. Trump claimed Zelensky has no cards to play without the U.S. and needed the United States in order to be a tough guy. He said Zelensky is risking World War III and added this will make for great TV. To me, this demonstrated Trump and Vance as bullies who clearly are aligned with Putin and support Russia. I mean, it's pretty simple, pretty evident to me what's going on here. Amazingly, the mega crowd claimed Zelensky was the aggressor and at fault, partly because he was not grateful enough to the United States. What was your takeaway from this meeting, and will this result in less support for Trump? I say likely not. Pretty evident there's nothing he could do to erode support. And it's just Trump was once quoted as saying something to the effect of, "I could go out and shoot somebody in Manhattan and not lose support," and I'm starting to believe that, folks. I mean, this was a bizarre spectacle for sure. It was clearly bullying. Why J.D. Vance got involved and why he was even there, I have no idea. I've never seen anything like this before. What is your takeaway on this? How embarrassing was this, do you think? Or maybe you support, I don't know how, but maybe people, well, I do know people support Trump. And this because I've read it and I've watched it on various podcasts. 902-405-6000, what is going on here? And how far does this have to descend? How low can the bar go when it comes to Donald Trump? There's a State of the Union address going in on Tuesday, tomorrow night. Should be interesting to hear what that sounds like, but I'm not anticipating anything any different than the tone and that we've heard over the past number of months. 902-405-6000. Give us a call. What is your takeaway on this? And what about support for Ukraine? Are you concerned that without the United States full support for Ukraine, it'll be an unwinnable war? Or do you think that Europe and Canada should step up, and in particular Europe, and do more? I mean, look, the proximity to Ukraine and to Russia matters. And maybe you think Trump's got a point in that. Why has the U.S. been doing most of the heavy lifting in that area? Or a disproportionate amount of the heavy lifting? Considering the proximity to Europe. 902-405-6000. Give us a call again, 902-405-6000. Also, tariffs, are they coming tomorrow or not? On again, off again, on again, off again. What are your thoughts on tariffs? Do you think we'll see tariffs tomorrow here in Canada and Mexico? 902-405-6000. Michael, hello.
How you doing today, Todd?
Hey, I'm well. You?
Good, buddy, good. But after watching that display in the White House, and to think that he's supposed to be the most powerful man in the world, you had to feel sorry for Zelensky, a democratically elected leader of a country, being thrashed by two morons, and the other morons and that other little weasel.
All right, we could perhaps refrain from the name calling if at all possible, Michael.
Okay, they're nice guys then.
No, don't be sarcastic. Just could refer to them who they are. I think that'll do.
That's what the Lindsey Graham. His comments after the meeting. I don't know where it's all going in, Todd. It's out of control, and the ones that are going to suffer are the same very people that are responsible for electing leaders like that. But they shouldn't be in the classify as leaders. They should be classified as nothing but public morons and court jesters. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. David, what's your take on on what happened on Friday?
Yeah, well, I watched the whole 45-minute interview because I wanted to see what the exact ask was on behalf of, the Trump team, Trump, whatever. Mm-hmm. And, the meeting was fine in the sense that it was cordial up until about 35 minutes. And then the final 10, when a Polish reporter asked that, said basically, look, to me growing up, the United States was always the place of great rock and roll, great movies, but, more importantly, sort of hope and freedom. What do you say to my people who think you're far too close to Putin? And that's when J.D. Vance jumped in with his sort of now famous remarks. And then sort of Zelensky pushed back and said, well, what kind of diplomacy, and about the importance of diplomacy and how that was something that was never tried before, kind of thing. And Zelensky said, "Well, what kind of diplomacy are you talking about? We've done sort of lots of things with this guy, and he's always sort of broken his word and gone back on them, and not to mention something that wasn't brought up, all the war crimes in Ukraine that the Kremlin denies and says is all fake news and stuff like that." And then to which JD responded there. So I don't know. That's it was definitely a fiasco for sure.
But do you think it hurts the United States on the global stage, and do you think they care?
Well, yeah, I wonder what's interesting, because during that interview, while it was sort of the better parts, I see the better parts cordial. Trump was still going on about Hunter Biden and the laptop and all this kind of stuff, and saying, "Oh, the war never would have started if I were in charge." And Zelensky at a few points sort of rolled his eyes as just like, you don't live there, you don't really know what's going on. But yeah, Trump also sort of spoke about his legacy, and sort of they mused about sort of his picture being on one of the walls as the sort of great peacemakers. So it's kind of interesting now that the Europeans are sort of working on a plan to lead the negotiations and sort of get a sort of realistic ceasefire deal in place, and how Trump will respond to that. Because I think what he basically wanted was just a quick deal, like an immediate ceasefire, so he could get the headlines and be the great peacemaker in Ukraine and stuff like that, and didn't really sort of care about the consequences. So, I'm curious to see what he's going to say about that, or at least what comes out of Europe's efforts, and then what Trump's response will be to that as well, too.
Okay, thanks, David. Appreciate your time. 902-405-6000. Barry, hello.
Hello. When JD went back home, the lineup of protesters, they won't go to townhouses in the United States right now if you're a Republican, because the people are into another world. But this morning I heard something downright scary. Peter Navarro said, we're thinking of redrawing the lines up between Canada and the United States. Now, Charlie Angus was being interviewed at the time that this was said, and he said basically that's an act of war. I mean, how can you decide that they're going to change the lines between Canada and the United States unilaterally by moving it into our, we'd lose land.
Yeah. Is that confirmed? Has that been confirmed that Navarro did that?
Yeah, I watched him say it. But look, but the debacle, part of that is payback for a certain phone call. Trump's first impeachment was because of his phone call to Zelensky. So I've been following this close. Usually when I call you, I take for granted that people know more than they do, so I leave stuff out. But everybody was wondering, how is he going to pay Zelensky back for that? And those last few minutes were trying to make him grovel. His payback for that. Yeah. It really was. But also, when Putin went into Russia, Trump said, brilliant move. And if he's trying to start an authority, States right now is in a pretty scary part. I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't be surprised if the States, Russia's celebrating, if they don't get out of NATO and align themselves more with Russia unless something happens in the States to do it. And I don't care if people think I'm crazy. If that happens, it's not good for us.
Okay, thanks for the call, Barry.
Right now, you got to admit it's getting scary.
Yeah, no, I said it is scary. It's unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it. Thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. Give us a call, folks. What do you think about all of this? And you can talk about whatever else you'd like to get. If you get something else on your mind, certainly do so. But this was something that everybody talked about after this happened on Friday was this incident at the Oval Office. And people were just gobsmacked and just in shock of what they witnessed. And I think it's pretty evident what's going on here, in my opinion, that you had two people in Vance and Trump, and they were bullying Zelensky. And even physically, Zelensky's not a large man; he's a smaller guy, and he's sitting in that big chair. And you got Trump sitting beside him, and you got JD Vance, and it was just bizarre. I mean, where is the diplomacy? Where is the tact? Where is the class that you would expect in that situation? Even if tough situations, you still treat people with more class and tact and etiquette than that. These are world leaders. This is a guy whose country's been attacked, and they've been at war for 3 years and lost how many people? God knows how many soldiers and Ukrainians have paid a dear price. And here's Trump and Vance just bullying the guy. And thankfully, he didn't back down. 902-405-6000. Look, folks, maybe you think I got this all wrong. If you do so, give me a call. I'll give you a chance to have your say. 902-405-6000. What's your takeaway on all of this? Again, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls. Got some open lines for you folks. Give us a buzz, 902-405-6000. What is on your mind today? Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is on a flight back to Ottawa after a busy few days in London. He met with King Charles earlier today, said they would be discussing matters of importance to Canadians, including standing up for sovereignty and independence. The audience with the monarch followed a weekend security summit on Russia's war with Ukraine. Wow. Justin Trudeau, I think it's time for you to pack her in, folks. I think he's milking this for all it's worth, isn't he? Is he not? I guess some of you would say that he's staying on the job to the very last minute, and that's a good thing. I suppose you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. This email from Don, then we'll go back to the phones, and again, the way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Don says this, Zelensky was the victim of an orchestrated mugging. He's talking about this meeting in the Oval Office on Friday. Says he handled himself extremely well and was about the only person in the room who showed dignity and class. His only mistake was not to use a translator and made his comments in Ukrainian. He could have been more effective. For example, when the reporter asked a ridiculous question about Zelensky's apparel, Zelensky should have responded that he takes his fashion advice from Elon Musk. What an embarrassment for the U.S., a totally disgusting event. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Ken says this, then we'll go back to the phones. Ken says, I found it very hard to watch. It was the most disgusting thing I ever witnessed from any leader of a civilized nation. I also wonder how Trump will react to Trudeau standing with EU and Ukraine. Then he said, did you not see the crowd in Vermont gathering to boo and heckle J.D. Vance when he was visiting Vermont for a skiing trip? And he sent me the link to that. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I tell you, you got to hand it to the Zelensky there, taking all that criticism from Trump and them, and how he kept his posture and not start screaming at him in Ukrainian. I am very glad that he stood up to him. And we should all be taking a very good look at what he has done to stand up to Trump and do the exact same thing. Now, the other part that I'm calling about is if they're going to go through with the tariffs on the 4th, the first thing they should do is shut down all wood going into the U.S. Don't give them a chance. Just, boom, shut it down. And let's see how fast that Trump and them say, oh, God, we did something wrong, right? That is what we got to do.
Yeah, the challenge is the producers who are making that wood, they're business owners, right?
Yes, they're going to take a hit, yes. Yeah. But if they can't last for 2 weeks, they can turn around and sell it back to the Americans for an extra price. In other words, put the wood up.
Yeah.
We're changing our pricing. They get back everything that they're losing. They need the wood. We supply too much to them. And we really got to get out of this box and stop bootlicking to the Americans.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. We got to stand up and start doing something. Because you just look at what's going on down there. Don't worry about Trump. If we do enough hurt on the economy down there, they'll take care of Trump. They'll take care of all of them down there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because how long can you hunger somebody? How long before they snap?
Yep.
That's the main thing. Stand up and let them snap. They'll take care of Trump. Just stand up.
Okay, Robert, thanks for the call, pal.
Have a good one.
Take care at 902-405-6000. Ron, hello.
Hi, Todd. I guess you pretty much mentioned everything I was going to say about the meeting, but I'm glad Zelensky stood up to that guy, and the rest of the world is supporting him now, and hopefully the EU can get this straightened out, because I don't have any faith in the U.S. anymore. That's just ridiculous what's going on down there.
Well, they used to call it, what's the term, the leader of the free world? I don't think that's applicable anymore. I don't think we can call Donald Trump the leader of the free world. Obviously not.
The free world is the ones over there watching all this stuff would be China. That's just going to happen. They're just sitting there watching how this is all going to play out.
But the other question I was going to, and then the other thing about him with this inflated price of $350 billion that they gave to Ukraine to fight, and a lot of people are saying that that's more like $140 billion. It's way overinflated, like he inflates everything. But the other question, did you happen to see Christian Freeland on Bill Maher, or did you hear anything about that?
I saw some clips of it. I didn't watch it, but I saw some clips of it. Why do you ask?
I didn't know. I was just wondering because she was on there and she did about a 10-minute segment.
Yeah.
And Bill Maher was pretty informed with our political system and asking her questions about it. And then she was on the campaign. I don't know why she was down there, but anyway.
Well, because she knows that a lot of Canadians. I mean, that gets a lot of eyeballs and a lot of ears and a lot of attention. I think that Chrystia Freeland, personally, I don't know what it is about her, but I find her cringy. I just do not. I don't find her engaging. It's just not good. I'll be glad to see her off the political scene. Hopefully.
Yeah, well, Bill Maher, he was talking about Polyev, and he couldn't pronounce his name for a while, and she wouldn't help him pronounce it. And then later on, he came back and talked about it again. Then he says, well, then I found a clip on him. Like, who is this guy? Where'd he come from? Wow, he seems like an awful lot. He looks like a Trump second man. Like, what's going on there with you guys? Oh, yeah, that was a good one. I like that segment on there.
Okay, Ron. Thanks for the call, pal. Take care. 902-405-6000. I did not watch all of it, but I watched some of it. And Chrystia Freeland, I don't know. There's nothing about her to me suggests that she would be the right choice to be the leader of the Liberals or the Prime Minister of this country at any point in time. It's just the worn out shtick. And look, her fingerprints are all over the last 10 years of this government and a pretty unhappy electorate with Justin Trudeau. That's why he's gone. That's why he's on the way out. And I don't see a path for Chrystia Freeland. I truly don't. David, hello.
Oh, hi. Is that me?
Yeah, it's you.
Yeah. I wasn't sure. Hey, so, yes, you were discussing the meeting in the White House, and this is a little off topic, but I just wanted to draw people's attention to something. In today's Guardian, there's an article, an opinion article, and it's called, "Is Europe Misunderstanding Trump's Position on Ukraine?" And that's all I wanted to say. If people were interested in reading that, to me, it's a very interesting approach to it all, and it would solve some of the problems. Basically, it's saying what Ukraine wants is not realistic, but what they can get with Europe's help is eminently doable. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, David. Appreciate the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. What is your takeaway on all of this, folks? Give us a call. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Quick email, then back to the phones. Rob says, in all the drama of Trump's behavior, Canada has lost sight of the broader long-term shift in the U.S. toward isolationism. We need to be less complacent and realize that our security is not an American priority. We need to become more self-reliant economically and militarily, and absolutely, Rob, I agree with that 100%. Oh, we are on our own, basically. That's where we're at this point, and it's not going to change as long as Trump's in the White House, that's for sure. And we should take this as a wake-up call and do what we need to do to become more self-reliant economically and militarily, and that's just the reality of it. And I would say that isolationism is the exact term for the United States. They are creating this climate of isolation, and it's not, I don't think it's a good one. Trump often talks about make America great again, and some would certainly say that it was great in the past for a certain few, but certainly not everybody, and it depends on your experience. That all said, there were a lot of great aspects of American society over the decades. There absolutely has been, and it was and for a lot of reasons an amazing example of what a country can be. Not perfect, certainly far from it, But I would say part of the reasons why it was great, if you want to say that term, was because of its outreach internationally and its cooperation militarily and its willingness to be a leader in the way that it was. And that is part of what made it great. So as you start to take all that away and just start focusing on your own, and look, I get that some people say that we should be doing more of that, focusing on our own borders and our own boundaries and people living in it. And I get that argument. I do. But the reality is, in order to be a great country, you need to look beyond your own borders, even when things are tough within your own boundaries. I think that's part of the secret sauce that Trump is losing and missing here. And the arrogance is just unbelievable, immeasurable. 902-405-6000. John, hello.
Hello.
Hi there. Go ahead, John.
I think the bigger picture that Putin and Trump want to go after is the North, the Arctic. They either want to redraw lines up there. There's nobody in between Russia and the States except us.
Yep, that's right.
So they're going to want to go after that big prize. Putin go after someone in Ukraine. And I think you're right about the military. We have to boost the military, but we don't have the population to boost it, with soldiers and everything. We need to look at the new picture, and the new picture is drones. Tanks and planes are not doing the same as they used to do.
Yeah.
The drones, if we were able to build our own, make our own manufacture of drones and everything, I think that would be a big concern.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I got to say.
Okay, John. Thanks for the call, pal. Take care. 902-405-6000. And he raises a good point in that you can't just simply look at our military and say you should have a traditional military, Air Force, Army, Navy, and full scale, all three. That's probably not realistic. And I've talked to Scott Taylor about this over the years, interviewing Scott Taylor of Free to Core magazine. And he has often suggested that we should specialize, and this is what John was talking about. In whatever way that we do it, if it's going to be the North, let's focus on the North and drones and icebreakers and things that you need to protect sovereignty in the North. But we can't be we can't function as a traditional, typical military because we simply don't have the size to do it. Recruiting alone is extremely challenging. So what do? You streamline, and you focus, and you make an impact on like I said, protecting the North, and I think that's something that we should look at. And of course, this falls in line with what Pierre Poilievre said recently about building a base in the North. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Kathy, hello.
Hi. Good morning. Thanks for taking my call, Todd.
Sure.
Just like many Canadians and many people around the world, I did watch a lot of that interview. Well, I wouldn't even call it a meeting or an interview. It was appalling, disgraceful. I could use so many words for it. But a lot of people haven't brought up the fact of the matter that like 30 years ago, back in 1994, with the demise of the USSR, Ukraine gave up its entire nuclear arsenal for a security promise by the U.S., Russia, and other countries. For the security promise that they would be protected. It was called the Budapest Memorandum. So it's clear that Putin can't be trusted. I mean, he's invaded Ukraine before, and this has been a major invasion with, tens of thousands of people killed. He can't be trusted. Trump can't be trusted because Trump is on Putin's side. He's on his side for various reasons, but most of all, Trump, in my opinion, he wants control of North America. He's looking to annex Canada. Mm-hmm. And if anybody ever thinks that Putin's going to stop at Ukraine, he's not. He's looking to take over the UK, Poland, you name it. Neither one of these guys can be trusted, and I sure hope that the meetings in the UK with their countries come up with a solution, come up with a plan to propose to Trump to settle this. I mean, nobody wants this war to end more than
Yeah, don't you find it strange, Kathy, that the EU and Ukraine have to, and Russia all have to get the green light from Trump? Like how has that happened? It just seems bizarre to me.
Well, I mean, look at Trump and all his people that he's hired. They have no political background. They have no common sense. They're all out for money. I mean, it's obvious Trump wants Ukraine's minerals. It's a valuable source to them. But the fact of the matter is that it's not all about money. It's about control. And that's a typical narcissist, to control and demeanor and just, pound people down and pound countries down. Yeah. Trump doesn't care about anybody but himself. He doesn't care about the American people. And it's the same with Putin. So, I mean, hindsight, they say, is 2020, 30 years ago when that agreement was signed. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Ukraine is second guessing that now because they would have been the third largest nuclear arsenal in the world.
Yeah. Okay, Kathy. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
902-405-6000. Look, when it comes to political leaders, I would suggest that for the most part, people who are elevated, especially at this type of a national leader or provincial leader or whatever it is, that the number one motivation moving anybody in that situation, and I'm generalizing, but I do believe it to be true, is power. In some way, it links back to that. And they'll use the electorate and say that they'll wrap themselves in the flag and say that, and Trump literally does that, literally. But I would say that Justin Trudeau or just about anybody, again, who is a world leader or provincial leader or whatever, it comes down to power and control, and their own ambitions come ahead of everything, including the electorate and the people themselves. So that's not unique to Donald Trump, but Donald Trump wears it on his sleeve, certainly transparently. Some would say that that's endearing, but it's pretty evident that Trump really cares about power and control, and it's pretty evident that he's embarrassed the United States, in my opinion. But look, that's just my opinion. Sean, I know you don't probably agree with that, but go ahead.
No, I don't. I took a completely different outcome and outlook from that interview. I think if people watch the whole 50 minutes and watch the whole actual thing instead of the last 7 minutes, you might come away with a different view as well. But Zelensky went in there with the wrong attitude. He flew to the White House to sign a deal. And before the deal was signed, they did the media thing. And Zelensky went there and presented the meeting like he was talking to Biden and Harris, at which we all know Trump isn't that kind of leader.
He was expecting a president to be diplomatic and courteous, and why would you expect that from Trump and Vance?
I don't want to fight with that, Todd. I just want to get my point.
No, you made a great point. You made a great point. He was expecting civility. Why would you ever expect that from Trump?
Exactly. And then, he started off by showing him pictures of hostage and war. I mean, Todd, I'm 35 years old. I've seen what ISIS does to people. I've watched it on TV of cutting heads off. I know what ruthless war criminals do with prisoners of war. I know Putin's ruthless. I know. We all know this. There was no need to show that. We are here to make peace. That's what Trump's saying. And then Zelensky made the comment about you have beautiful oceans, but it will turn. That's when the conversation really turned, because now you're here to make a peace deal and you're threatening us and saying we're going to feel some kind of way. It was completely wrong of him to do it that way. So as far as I'm concerned, Zelensky went in there with the wrong attitude right from the beginning. And if you watch the whole interview...
Yes, I watched the whole interview. We watched...
Through the whole thing, it was fine.
Sean, to suggest that the people are ill-informed if they didn't watch the last 10 minutes, you don't know what people watched or what they didn't watch.
He attacked him the whole time, and he bullied him the whole time.
He did.
Called in and said that. No, I don't agree with that either.
Shocker.
But as far as I think this, as far as I'm concerned, this war is over. It'll be done and wrapped up in this month, I believe, simply due to the fact that it can't go on. The only way this Russia or Ukraine wins this war, Todd, is if we go to World War III. And I don't think people really understand what that means. Is Russia has an army of 1.5 million active duty soldiers with a ruthless leader who will slaughter his own people in the name of this. These are the people we are dealing with. That means I'm 35 years old, Todd. You might not be worried about being drafted, but I sure as hell am. I don't want my ass and my friends drafted to the military to fight some war that can be settled due to peace. Trump was the only person that's wanted peace, and Zelensky, no, we got to keep fighting. And this war is over. If the United States pulls out, like Trump said, they're done. They're done. That's it. And if NATO wants to come in and say they're putting peacekeepers in, well, Todd, you were in the military. You know how peacekeeping works. You don't send peacekeepers in the middle of a war battle zone. That's not how it works. You make a deal. You approach a ceasefire. Then peacekeepers come in during negotiations or after the deal is signed and the withdrawal of Russian troops are off the border. So now we have the leader of UK coming out and saying that they're going to put peacekeepers in the middle of war. Those are targets. They're pawns of war. They're targets. So when Russia kills one of them, now NATO's got to go to war because now they invoke Article 5 and all the countries have to back NATO and go to war against Russia. Well, here's the funny thing is what happens if Donald Trump says, you know what, you guys, if you put troops in there, I'm pulling out of NATO. We spend $850 billion a year to NATO. They make up 80% of NATO. And if Trump pulls out of NATO, that leaves nothing for NATO. They will disintegrate and go off in the wind. So there'll be no war. There'll be no boots on the ground. From Trudeau can say he's going to put Canadian boots on, Britain boots down. There'll be none of that because without the backing, and the UK Prime Minister said that, without the 100% backing of the US, that's the only way we can put these in there. And Trump already said there is no war.
Because Trump didn't like the way that Zelensky was dressed, and he didn't like that he was grateful enough and didn't say thank you enough. That's the reason to disintegrate a meeting and to have the result and put us on the cusp of World War III because he didn't like the way Zelensky was dressed and he didn't say thank you enough.
Well,
thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls. All right, continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000. Jordan, hello.
Hey, how's it going, Todd?
What's going on? All right, you?
Good, good. Is this the I hate Donald Trump line I reach?
Well, I certainly don't support how he acted on Friday, and quite honestly, I don't see how anybody could.
It sounds like this. That's what the new topic should be here for the radios. I hate Trump. Everybody calls in. Nothing important to talk about in here in Canada. Nothing important to talk about in Halifax.
Is that what you called, Jordan, to criticize what the topic of the day is? And ironically, you're talking about it.
It's just the same thing every day.
Well, if people want to talk about it, that's what they want to talk about. It's an open hour. People can talk whatever they like.
You're hearing some lady calling that Trump and Putin are teaming up to take over the world. It's like, come on. Really. Honestly, it's just getting pathetic, man.
What's getting pathetic?
That's all I have to say.
What's getting pathetic?
Topics, everything.
See you later. 902-405-6000. Don't like it, don't listen. Don't call. Bottom line. David, hello.
Good morning, Todd. I'm sorry to bother you, but I want to talk about Trump too. I saw it on CNN, and did you see his body language? He was so close to the other president that he could have taken a smuck at him.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. Let's see where we go next. Talk to Fred. Hello, Fred.
Hi, Todd. Good morning.
Hi.
Wow. I bet you're glad you didn't have a show live after that situation in White House. It took me an entire weekend to calm down. In all honesty, I think that whole thing was planned to go exactly the way that Trump wanted it to go, and they figured that they were going to basically ambush Zelensky into this deal because for the better part of that whole thing, it wasn't discussed until about the 35-minute point, and they made fun of him for the entire thing about his clothing. What people don't know is that black shirt he wears is A, it's Kevlar protected, and B, that little symbol on there was made by a Ukrainian girl that he wears it for. And my humble opinion, there was one man in that White House without a suit, and there was 100 suits there, but not one man in one. And that's the way I saw that. Did you know that in 1994, when they turned around and they did the arms reduction
agreement on nuclear weapons, that Ukraine had the third most nuclear weapons within the continent in European proper. So you had Russia. The deal was that they were to give those nuclear weapons back to Russia, and one of the terms is that U.S. would come to its economic or whatever type of defense it required. Now, they didn't do it in 2008 when they first got the Crimean War, and they didn't do it again. So I guess treaties are what you take them for, not even worth the paper they're written on.
Yeah. Okay, Fred, thanks for the call. Take care. Appreciate it. 902-405-6000. John, hello.
Hello, Todd. How are you?
I'm well, you?
Good, thanks. Good. Thanks for taking my call. I'm going to make a suggestion here with great hesitation and reservation, but, as your earlier callers have mentioned, we're alone in this situation at the moment as a country, and if we wanted to upgrade our military status as soon as we possibly could, and in terms of, or similarly to employing drones and things of that nature, perhaps we should reconsider our nuclear stance, and perhaps we should reconsider adopting nuclear weapons for our own defense.
Well, yeah, I suppose. I think that it's problematic and challenging for a lot of reasons. But yeah, when it appears as though we're more isolated, more alone, I guess the thought process was always. And look, in fairness, we have been laggards militarily when it comes to spending and our commitments to NATO and our own defense. We have, and I get that. That all said, though, look. I don't know about arming nuclear weapons, and I don't know if we could afford it, first of all. And second of all, the pushback would be intense, but I hear what you're saying. I guess your point is that we're alone and we can't rely on the U.S. anymore. Is that your point, John?
That's very much my point. And also, I don't know if we can rely on NATO anymore. I'm not sure if the United States becomes the aggressor, if other NATO countries, will enact Article 5 in order to defend us.
Yeah, that's true.
And further to that, I agree that Canada has been laggards, I guess, in terms of our defense spending. Mm-hmm. However, the whole concept of NATO is that each country within the organization takes on a role. And so I hope that we've, to some degree, taken on the role that we've been assigned. Honestly, I'm not even certain what that is. But, collectively as a group, we are stronger. But I'm not sure if we can rely on that. I'm pretty certain we cannot rely on that anymore as it relates.
Well, it'd be interesting, John, to see what happens if the Russians, and I don't want to fearmonger, but if the Russians ever came over the border in the north, what the Americans would do to protect the Arctic and our sovereignty, and perhaps nothing at this point. Perhaps we would be on our own.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for the call. That's where the threat comes from, folks, is the Arctic, in my opinion, and Russia. I mean, we are bordering Russia, literally. And the thought process was always that the Americans would come to our defense, and look, perhaps we've leaned on that too heavily in the past. And this is where you end up. Wayne, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, you?
Not too bad. I don't want to talk about Trump. I want to talk about HRM. All these potholes. When are they going to start repairing them? Do you hear anything?
Well, that's a good question. I heard today on the 101 in particular, which is a disaster in that inside lane. I heard today that they're going to start taking care of some of that, but I'm not sure. And the problem is that they have to use cold patch this time of year because it's not warm enough. And the asphalt plants aren't open yet, and cold patch doesn't last long.
I never seen a city like this before in my life, with potholes like this.
Yeah, and I know it's absolutely a bit. It's horrendous. It is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay, Wayne. Thanks for the call. Thanks for the calls, everybody. We appreciate it. Didn't get to all of you for that. I apologize. We will open the phone lines again tomorrow between 11 and 12. Nearly $3 million in cocaine meth seized from trucks entering Canada at Coutts border crossing. We'll talk about this when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, U.S. President Donald Trump has declared that economy-wide tariffs on Canadian goods are coming this week, and now Canada is waiting to see if he actually goes through with his threat. Trump's month-long pause on 25% across-the-board tariffs and a 10% levy on Canadian energy is set to end tomorrow. The federal government has beefed up border security, and Canadian leaders have tried to make a diplomatic push in Washington to try and stop any possible tariffs, but political leaders say Trump might not even know what he wants to see from Canada. And that's just it, right? This is the unpredictability factor that we're dealing with. And I do believe, and I think it's pretty evident that's by design, right? Trump likes to keep people guessing. And a caller suggested that this has become the Hate Donald Trump show or whatever you want to call it. Look, folks, it's an opinion show. That's what it's about, and my opinion of Trump is not very good. I'll admit it. I don't have an agenda going in. If Trump would behave with some dignity and some class and and diplomatically at all, I would give him full props. I don't have a vested interest. I want the United States to be successful. I would love to see Trump take a decent approach. But I'm just witnessing what I watched on Friday, and it's pretty evident to me what happened. And it was a hit job. It was a bullying. They completely bullied Zelensky. That's just my opinion. Again, if Trump were to behave in a tactful way and in a way that had some predictability and some diplomacy and some efficacy, then I could understand and I would support that. But I don't like Justin Trudeau either, and I because of that we've been accused of the same thing about Trudeau, and ironically, I've been accused of the same thing about Poilievre. So it's not like I have a love affair with any of these politicians, but Trump in particular is extremely bombastic. I think we would agree with that. Anyway, some things just some thoughts. All right, I saw this story on the Global News website. Large shipments of Canada-bound meth and cocaine worth nearly $3 million were seized at the Alberta border on 2 different days back in December and January. The Canada Border Services Agency said it intercepted nearly 900 kilograms of meth and 42 kilograms of cocaine from 2 commercial trucks seeking entry at the Coutts border crossing in southern Alberta. Joining us to discuss all of this is Duane Bratt, Mount Royal University political scientist. Duane, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Good afternoon, Todd.
All right, why is this of interest to you?
It interests with me because it confirms something I've been saying for a while now, that we do have a border issue with Canada and the U.S., but it's stuff coming from the U.S. It's drugs and crime and guns coming from the U.S. into Canada. That is not the phrase that Donald Trump uses. And so this idea that we need to secure the border is exactly right, but we need to secure the border for the exact opposite reason that Donald Trump does. And so Danielle Smith, who has been much more supportive of Trump than any other premier, the premier of Alberta, did dedicate Alberta sheriffs and drones to the Alberta-Montana border in response to Trump's complaints. And yet in the press conference where they announced it with her Minister of Public Safety and police chiefs, once the questioning became, it goes, yes, we need to do this because of illegal materials coming into Canada, not the other way around. And sure enough, that's what we saw in Coutts. And in fact, on the weekend, the Globe and Mail had a great investigative report that even that 43 pounds of fentanyl that Trump continues to cite using American figures, even those American figures may be greatly inflated because what they constitute as the northern border goes hundreds of miles into the U.S., and they can find no evidence that the origin was actually Canada, but in fact was Mexico.
Yeah, and of course, the narrative is that all these problems are coming from Mexico or Canada, but I'm sure that much of this stuff goes into American ports as well. Why would it not, right?
Yeah, exactly. And when you cross the border, when you go from Canada into the United States, you don't go through Canadian border services. You go through American border services.
Right.
And when you come back into Canada, then you go with Canada, because like in a democracy, we allow our citizens to leave the country, and where we put restrictions on is people coming into the country. And it just shows that this fight over tariffs is not about border security. It is about border security along the Mexican-American border. There's no doubt about that. But it's not about the Canadian-U.S. border, and it never has been.
All right. So what about this 1%? We hear that 1% of fentanyl comes from Canada. What's that? Is that based on where does that data come from?
Well, the data comes from the U.S. Border Services, but what they constitute the northern border region isn't strictly the border, because you make the case, yeah, they got past the border and we found it 2 miles inland. But they go hundreds of miles inland. So is that actually a border issue or something else? And so, yeah, is there illegal activity going from Canada to the U.S.? Of course there is. But it is minuscule. And the efforts that we would make to defend that border, such as searching every single vehicle, would lead to massive trade losses and inconvenience. You know, I lived for a number of years in Windsor, and the amount of truck traffic, if you spent half an hour per truck inspecting them, trucks would never cross the border. So what step do you get to go to hit zero tolerance, or what level of tolerance is acceptable?
Okay, so the response from the Canadian government to spend $1.3 or whatever billion in order to employ drones and hire more people and helicopters and whatever else they've done, and to go down and try and plead a case to show the United States lawmakers and decision makers that, look, we're doing something about all this. Is that a waste of time? Because it appears as though it must be.
I don't think it's a waste of time, because, as I said, there is a problem with the border with goods coming north. Right. So deploying that is still good. And if you have to appease Trump by saying, no, we're doing this to protect you, when really we're doing it to protect ourselves, that's not a big deal. Even the fentanyl czar. We don't have czars in this country. And in fact, his official title is a commissioner, because that's the system that we use. So again, it's just, he likes the idea of a czar, so we'll call it a czar. But the problem is the tariff threat is not about the border. And all you have to do is listen to the U.S. president talk, because his rationale changes over time. It's, well, you subsidize things, or you have a large trade surplus, or you don't spend enough on your military, or it's the border, or I want to annex you. So trying to find the solution is difficult when you don't know what the problem is.
Are you is amazed or shocked as I am that no matter what Trump does, his base never seems to find fault with it, no matter what he does?
Absolutely. And you're seeing that over the weekend in that horrible incident in the Oval Office with Ukrainian President Zelensky. Over the weekend, the coalition of the willing, the Europeans and the Canadians, started to make pledges. Well, now the trumpets, the pro-Trump forces in the U.S. says, see, this is what the master negotiator was able to do. He's getting the Europeans to increase their funding, which is what we wanted in the first place. There was no master plan there. He's just a mean-spirited, angry person who has some sort of allegiance to Vladimir Putin.
Yeah. So his unpredictable nature and keeping people on their toes and all of that, that's part of this goes along with these tariffs, right? Now we're wondering, okay, right on as the tariffs approach, will he change his mind? Won't he change his mind? That's all part of his his stick, I suppose, at this point.
I guess, and that's why we'll see if the tariffs actually get imposed tomorrow, or does he just dangle them for another 30 days?
Yeah.
And then another 30 days.
But is this but Duane, in my opinion, this is not sustainable for Canada to have to go on this yo-yo train for the next.
No, and it's already having an economic and psychological impact.
Yeah.
This has gone well beyond just a trade fight with the United States, and you're seeing that with a massive swing in Canadian public opinion against the United States, the likes of which I've never seen in my lifetime. And you probably have to go back to pre-World War I times to see that. And I don't know, even when Trump is gone sometime in the future, if you can put the toothpaste back in the tube after this.
Yeah.
How do you trust the Americans? He is breaking his own trade agreement that he negotiated in 2018. And he was so proud of it. He called it the greatest trade agreement in history. And now he is finding reasons to violate it. And it's not just against Canada. It's not just against Mexico. It's not just against China. It's against the Europeans as well. It's against the Australians. It's against everybody. And he calls it America First. Well, America First is going to become America Alone.
Duane, appreciate your time. Thanks for your insight.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, take care. Duane Bratt, Mount Royal University political scientist. Halifax-based Clearwater Seafoods changing its lobster operations, which has had a permanent and temporary job losses to a small rural community here in Nova Scotia. I'll chat with the Executive Director of the Lobster Council of Canada about this when we come back. Geoff Irvine joins us, the Executive Director of the Lobster Council of Canada. Jeff, thanks for joining the show.
Hey, Todd, how you doing?
I'm well. Yourself?
Good, thanks.
Okay, so we're talking about Halifax-based Clearwater Seafoods changed its lobster operations, led to permanent and temporary job losses here in Nova Scotia. Lockport Mayor Derek Amalfa said that half of the 145 people employed at the plant will lose their jobs, but the plant will remain open to process scallops. Clearwater Lobster Pound will be temporarily closed. The company is selling that Cape Breton facility to a new local owner. What was your reaction to this story?
Well, initially I was sad. I started my seafood career there 34 years ago, and I was around when Clearwater was building their lobster brand, and they've built it ever since then. They are one of the premier, high-quality, innovative companies that have put really Canada on the map in terms of lobster. So I was privately sad, and then putting on my professional hat in my job, I was also disappointed because those people were going to lose their jobs. And Clearwater getting out of the lobster business means that it's another reason that everyone has to understand it's a tough business. It's a tough business to make money. To make money consistently, there's so many factors and variables, and it's disappointing that a company like that doesn't feel like it's a good business.
All right. Does this send a signal to other businesses that are operating?
Oh, sure it does. To other businesses, to the harvesters, to governments. The structure of the lobster industry is not great, and it is what it is because of how it's developed and the history of it. But we need a better way, to price lobster. We need more of a quality mindset all the way up the value chain. And a better understanding from everybody in the value chain of who does what and why, and how the business works. So anyway, it was a tough week.
Okay, what's this mean for lobster fishermen and where do they can sell their product, and does this create a challenge?
Well, I think Clearwater's buy was 2 or 3 million pounds, so someone else will be able to buy that. I'm sure that the dealers who bought from fishermen and sold to Clearwater are scrambling now to find someone else to sell to. But I'm confident that they will, but not easy for them. And the harvesters that sell to those dealers, I'm sure they're wondering where their lobster is going to end up. But I think we'll adjust the sector. We only have 250 million pounds of lobster, give or take, from Canada. And it goes into live and processed and frozen. So we'll find a home for that lobster, but it'll be an adjustment for sure.
Okay, so how would say you'll find a home for the lobster? Kind of explain how that happens.
Well, the way the value chain works is that fishermen fish and sell to a buyer or a dealer, and that buyer or dealer sells to a processor or a live shipper or multiple processors and live shippers, depending on their business model and where they're located. So that will just, those who have lost Clearwater as a customer will have to find another one. So if they were selling sort of lobster that goes into processing, they will approach other processors. If they were selling live shipping lobster, they will call other live shippers. I mean, we have dozens and dozens of both in the region, and they'll just have to find someone else to sell to.
All right. So I don't know how long this company's operated in Lockport. How long has it been operation in that community?
Oh, I don't know exactly, but Pierce Fisheries, which is where the lobster was processed, was a scallop plant 35 years ago when I worked there.
Yeah.
So it was one of their first acquisitions, and it was a state-of-the-art scallop plant, and then they put in some equipment to do high-pressure lobster.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know specifically what their plan is there.
Okay. Any revitalization possibilities?
I don't really know. You mean in terms of processing something else there?
Well, no, they talked about scallops, but I'm talking about some other community or an opportunity for some community to kind of fill the void and get some type of manufacturing capability, or I don't know what the possibilities are, but I would think that these local small rural areas would be prime for this type of facility, would it not?
Well, it would be, and the facilities are there because that's where the resource is or was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why these plants were built. One challenge in all processing in Canada is labor. I don't know how Pierce has done it, but I think they operate year-round, so it's been easier to have more consistent labor. But other lobster processing plants close by to Lockport have had to bring in temporary foreign workers to keep their plants operating. But no, I don't know what the plan is there. They're going to keep processing scallops, but I don't know.
What about diversifying markets? How are we doing with that?
Well, I think you and I talked a couple of weeks ago about our mission. We just came back from Europe. That was a very successful mission. I'm assuming that some of the pressures coming from south of the border are going to encourage governments and the industry to invest more in market diversification. And the thing is, it's not you don't just turn a key and sell volumes like we sell to the U.S. and other markets. It takes time and also consumer demand. Americans know lobster, like lobster. In some new markets, we have to educate, in some cases, people about what the product is, and so it takes time to introduce it. But that's all happening. I mean, I see good promise in the Middle East. There's been more and more demand in places like Saudi Arabia and Qatar and the UAE. Plus, Southeast Asia is always a good market. But one of our challenges is getting our heads around not being reliant on the U.S. market, because it's relatively a simple place to sell, except these days. So companies have found it very easy to sell frozen and live lobster in the U.S., and it's more of an effort, and I think we talked about this last time, takes more manpower, more effort, and the expertise to sell to other markets, and credit lines, and there's all kinds of reasons why companies do what they do, but one of them is financing. And when you can sell to the U.S. and get paid in 30 days, it's easier than sometimes putting a container on the water and waiting for 30 days and then getting paid 30 days after that, things like that.
Yeah.
But I think governments are committed to supporting the sector, and the sector needs to get committed and come up with the money ourselves. We can't rely on governments. We have to come up with our own money to get out there and push our products in other markets. And until we do that, we're just going to be takers.
Okay, Geoff, listen, I appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this. We'll talk again.
All right, Todd.
All right, take care. Thanks. Geoff Irvine, Executive Director of the Lobster Council of Canada. When we come back, we'll talk local sports. Lots to get to. AUS action over the weekend. Ken Bagnell joins us when we return.
Thanks.
All right, so time to talk some local sports, and we've got Ken Bagnell here in studio, the CEO of Canadian Sport Institute Atlantic. Ken, thanks for doing this.
Good day, Todd.
All right, and you've got some people, you brought some guests with you, correct?
Absolutely.
All right, Christina Black and Jill Brothers joins us, fresh off quite a tournament at the Scotties, winning bronze. Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, pretty exciting stuff, eh?
Yeah, it was a great run. We're still excited and tired.
I'll bet, and I'm sure that you've heard from all your friends and family and everybody else over the last week or so in response to that, eh?
Yeah, it's lots of messages flowing in, and we appreciate all of them. It's just exciting to hear from people to know that everyone's watching you.
Yeah, and that was the best finish in a decade or so for a Nova Scotia rink. Is that correct at the Scotties?
Yeah, last in 2018, I finished third as third for Team Marianne Arsenault, but that's our best finish since then.
Wow. Okay, not quite a decade then.
Not quite, but we're currently fourth in the country on CTRS, which is the highest a team in Nova Scotia has been in a very, very long time, probably since the days of Colleen Jones.
Wow, that's interesting. All right, so up next is the Olympic curling trials in Halifax in November, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so tell us about what's at stake for that.
So it's the top 8 teams qualify for that, and the winner gets to represent Canada at the Olympics in Italy next year.
My oh my! So what type of pressure is on you for that, do you think?
Well, for us, just qualifying for the Olympic trials is a huge goal. So we're really excited to get to be the home team here in Halifax, play at the Scotiabank Centre. It's going to be amazing. So there's no real pressure. It's just a great opportunity.
Jill, what's your take on this?
Oh, I just think it's so exciting. I'm not a 22-year-old fresh-faced curler anymore, so any of these opportunities are just super exciting to be able to do this kind of stuff. And I've just been playing for so long, and that it's just super cool that I get to experience something that's still new as a mature curler, if you will.
Ken, what's it like for you to watch such great young athletes here?
Yeah, well, we've had an amazing run in curling this year, and I think the performance of this team at the Scotties was really showing that Nova Scotia is making inroads at the national level. Now, not only dominating really at the youth level, but having teams that contend who can be among the best in the country. And the difference between this team and the second place team is really marginal. So winner takes all in November. It's an amazing event. We did have it, for those who are a little bit older like me, we did have this event in 2005, the Olympic qualifying event, and Brad Gushu won that and went on to win the Olympics after that. Yeah. But it was a sold-out venue for a week straight.
Wow.
So it was an amazing atmosphere, and having a local team in it this year is just going to create even a better atmosphere. So I think it's going to be something that you should check on your calendar, go book some tickets, and cheer on not only the best teams from across the country, but those teams that will represent Canada in Italy. We had a little taste of that last month, of course, with the Four Nations Cup, and what it means to celebrate Canada, especially in these crazy times. And I think the support for our Canadian athletes is just being increased day by day with a little of that and pride that we have. So, watching these ladies try to be that representative is going to be an amazing thing that we often don't have that in our own backyard. Yeah. And we do this time around, and I think it will be a fabulous event.
Joe, what do you think it'll be like? I mean, obviously, it's great to play in your hometown in front of a home crowd, but the pressure's there too, right? Or sorry,
yeah,
Christina, I want to ask you a question.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, there's always pressure, but it's so much fun to play in front of a crowd that's cheering all of your shots on. We got to experience it a bit this year, playing in front of a big crowd in St. John's at an event, and there was no feeling like it to have that many people cheering you on, and it just makes you so fired up to make every shot. It's so exciting, and I can't wait to play in a big crowd here in Halifax.
Jill, what are you anticipating, I should say?
Similar thoughts. Just like our favorite event this season by far was that Slam in St. John's, and there was no local team there besides Bragushu, but we're on the women's side. So they adopted us, and I looked at the girls at one point in time and I said, you know what this is? This is practice for the trials when we get to be the home team. Yeah. So and we loved it, and we had so much fun. So again, we've all heard pressure is a privilege, so we'll take that and really enjoy it.
Christina, how do you keep how do you keep your skills where they need to be, and how do you guys stay on top of your game?
We practice a ton. Yeah. Nearly every day we're out at the rink practicing, either together or on our own. It's great for us. We all live close together, so we do get to practice a lot together as a team, which really helps us to be really good and to be consistent. So we just put in a lot of work on the ice and off the ice.
One of the unique things about this team is that they're all in the same place. Many of the teams in the country have members who are in different parts of the country. Right. And they get together when they have a competition, maybe train a little or have a training camp. Yeah. They actually can train full-time, coordinating their schedules in order to do that, which is a great advantage when you move forward in this. Jill was also going to mention some of the performances of our younger curlers.
Yeah, we hope that we set a good example for the younger curlers because they're out there and they are doing amazing. The U18 National Championship just wrapped up in Saskatoon, and we had double gold. So the girls and the boys both won gold. I think they both went undefeated, Ken, is that right? Yeah. We were at the Scotties at the same time, so I didn't get to track as well as I like to. Yeah. So that's amazing. There is no world championship for that age group, but the next age group up, we have a national champion from last season, Team Veinotte. So they're actually heading to the Worlds in Italy, which is a warm-up for the Olympic venue in April. So they've had quite a wait, but we're really excited to follow them next month when they get to represent Canada as the U20 team.
Yeah. So do you have any other big tournaments before the Olympic qualifier?
Well, we'll be competing at the PointsBet Invitational it's at the start of October, so that will be a big warm-up. Yeah. All the teams that are pre-qualified for the trials are going to be invited to that event.
Where's that?
It's in Calgary.
I see.
Yeah,
okay.
And then we're hoping to qualify for a couple of Grand Slam of curling events that will be great warm-ups for the trials.
Yeah, because I would think that there's nothing like real competition or really, it's hard to replicate that in practice, right?
Oh, yeah. It's hard to replicate that game intensity and just having to make those shots and make under pressure and against the best teams in the world.
Yeah, for sure. So are either of you ever really nervous at these events, or do you know how to obviously kind of harness that nervousness or that energy? Or Jill, what's your...
Yeah, I get nervous a lot. Yeah. Sometimes it shows up at game time. Sometimes it shows up because I start thinking too much. But I have to say, as the Scotties went on, I felt more and more comfortable this year, which was great. Yeah. Again, enjoying the experience instead of worrying about the pressure, which is a lot more fun to play that way. Yeah. I've had lots of different nervous situations over my lifetime of curling, and I think everyone deals with that differently, and it shows up in people differently. Yeah. But usually when I'm nervous, I do play pretty well because I think it also means I care a lot.
You focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Christina?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Everyone gets nervous, but it's also means it's so exciting. So it's more just being excited and excited to play. And I love making a big shot under pressure. So that's when I thrive the best, is when it's a high pressure situation.
Yeah, that's right. There's a reason why champions are champions, right? You're able to deal with that.
You need to love to have that moment or have that opportunity. And that's, I love it. So it's a good sign when you're a little nervous.
Who would you call, or who would you say might be your main rivals or teams that you just really want to beat badly?
Well, Team Rachel Homan is by far and away the top team in the country and in the world. Yeah. And they're the ones that we need to strive to be able to beat if we want to win next year.
Yeah. Jill, you agree with that?
Rachel's team is amazing. We had a lot of teams on our list, if you will, this year that we wanted to beat as we went through the season. a lot of those teams were at the Scotties. So that's how we kind of got through the Scotties in a way. We knew that there was teams that were ahead of us or close to us on that ranking system. So in a way, we had like a rival for a game. And we were like, okay, if we get past you, we know this gets us closer to our goal.
Yeah.
And then the next game felt the same. So, we looked at those Manitoba teams, the BC teams. So at the Scotties, it felt like everyone was our rival because they were all kind of in our way. So that's the way I felt going into a lot of those games this time around. But yeah, Rachel's the top dog. And if we want to win anything on the national stage, you got to beat Rachel.
Well, look, it's amazing what you guys have achieved. Congratulations on all the success. And man, oh man, when this event opens or comes on our doorstep, the Olympic curling trials and here in Halifax, we'll definitely like to have you guys back. Ken, I'm sure you could help facilitate that.
We can do that.
All right, so congratulations to both of you.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's Christina Black and Jill Brothers, and they are going to make it to the Olympics, my prediction.
You heard it here.
There you go. All right, we'll continue with Ken Bagnell when we come back. All right, continuing our chat, talking local sports with Ken Bagnell, CEO, Canadian Sport Institute Atlantic. Ken, that was great meeting the girls.
Yeah, it's wonderful. They put in an awful lot of work. I was saying that they're, probably away for 9 weeks of the year curling. Like it's a big commitment and juggling their jobs, juggling their home life. A team to make it to this level is unbelievable.
Absolutely, and I would say inspirational for young curlers.
Yeah, absolutely. It shows you the work that you need to put in, and then to retain your level. They're third in the country. Their goal is not to end up third. Their goal is to end up first in it. It's a hard road in curling, and we've been fortunate to have teams like Colleen Jones in the past and Mark Dacey, who've done very well, but it's been a little while, been about 20 years until we've had that level of team. So I think that's coming back, which is great.
Okay. Also, a big weekend in basketball. The AUS Championship happened, and lots of excitement, eh?
Yeah, I was there on Friday, and great crowd. Even there was no Nova Scotia teams playing. There was probably 3,500 people watching. UNB and Memorial play the game that I was watching, and St. Mary's women came out on top this weekend, and UPI men. It's a hard competition there, and but it really showcases the talent that's coming here for university sport, and a great celebration of sport that, again, we take for granted that's here every year, but it's so good. Same as university hockey is very good. University volleyball, like we have so many good AUS sports, and hopefully people can go out and watch or follow along with those activities.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, What else do you like to talk about?
Yeah, well, I think that this is a quiet time, I would call it, except for kind of some curlers and some winter sports athletes who are doing pretty well. Chief among those is Liam Moffat from Truro, who was an Olympian as well last time around. He was 8th at a World Cup in Italy over the past month, also competed in another one. So, we have some athletes who are at that competitive level. Another woman in wheelchair basketball on our next-gen national team was bronze medalist at a competition in Japan. Her name is Kayla McKinnon from Dartmouth. So there's things happening, but most of the athletes we have in this area are summer sport athletes, right, who would go to a summer Olympics, and their events are a little further in the year, but we see Ellie Black, 3-4 times a week. Sarah Mitten is started to compete again. These Olympians from 2024, Sloan McKenzie's down in California with the national canoe kayak team. So these people are training probably for 340 days, and then they have 3 or 4 competitions in the year. But the work they're putting in daily allows them to have that competition. So, I mean, that side of things is great. And so as the summer comes, we'll see a lot more competitive results from our top athletes, but they are, putting the work in now in order to have that.
I would think that it's when it comes to funding from the federal government or whatever stream of funding that there is, obviously probably never enough. always be good to have more. But what can you tell us about funding for these high-end athletes?
Well, it's really interesting. You mentioned that. So we have a curling team here who travels across the country to play. They pay their own bills. Right. So they'll have to raise their money through sponsorship, through partnership, and hope to win an event or two to give them a little more money. But generally, they're investing their own money. Our sailing competitors are generally funding their own campaigns until they get to a certain point where they'll get a little support from the national organization, but not complete. So they're kind of training, fundraising, seeking sponsorship. I think there's a lot of great athletes in sailing, in athletics, in curling, and a number of sports where local sponsorship plays a critical role in their success. Other sports such as canoe kayak, a lot of their expenses, or most of their expenses, are covered. So it's not as much as a kind of a dire financial situation. However, they're in a position where they're giving up, their 20s in order to train to represent Canada. So it's really important for those athletes to integrate within, potential career pathways that they may take later on. And I know that's a very serious area that the athletes work with. So we're constantly looking for community partners who, may provide opportunities for athletes to, dip their toe into different professions to see if that's something they'd like to pursue and form relationships so maybe they can enter the workforce at some stage as well after their athletic career. And that's something that, as a community, we do fairly well, but is very quiet. And I think it's something we'd like to explore a lot more so we can give the athletes a peace of mind that, they're not going to be, totally in debt for the rest of their lives because of what they decided to do for 10 years to represent Canada. And we saw through the Four Nations last month what representing Canada means. And yes, it was at an explosive time, in U.S.-Canadian relations, but the fact is we do value our athletes who put on the maple leaf, whether they're a hockey player, a paddler, a athletics person, a curling, whatever. We value that. And I think it was just a reminder of how much we value at the Four Nations. Win or lose, we were so proud to be Canadian. And I think that if there's any net benefit from what's happening with U.S.-Canadian relations, it's the pride in Canada. And sport is one of those areas where we can show it very easily for a whole wide range of athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think it's interesting how you describe that it is a sacrifice for people to dedicate themselves to these sports in their 20s because they could be earning money or building a career or whatever it is.
Yeah, and just when you think about it, how many times do you actually sit and watch gymnastics with, the best athlete gymnast who's ever been out of Canada, Ellie Black, in our backyard. We actually may only have 2 chances to see her. And, the work that they put in is kind of unknown, right, as far as the general public. But it's, hours and hours a day for all these top athletes. And, whether they're doing their sport in the gym or whether they're lifting weights or whether they're watching their nutrition, whether they're getting sleep, like multiple training sessions a day for most of these levels of athletes. And I think we're lucky here. We have a very supportive community, but it's quiet for so long, except for these times when they compete, such as the Olympic Games. And I think that if we can find ways of putting, like this show, I really appreciate this opportunity to highlight of what those athletes and coaches are doing to, eventually wear the flag on their back.
Indeed. We're just about out of time, about a minute or so left. So anything that you want to let people know that you didn't get a chance yet?
Yeah. So, I think that understanding, again, what the value of these athletes who represent Nova Scotia at the Canada Games, in 2025 in St. John's or at Olympic Games in Italy. Hopefully we have some very major hockey players from this area, I would presume would be on that team.
Yeah.
Let's take that time to say, listen, this is something that we can participate in, and that, you can be inspired to be physically active by, wanting to be the next Sidney Crosby. That doesn't mean you're going to be that way skill-wise, but all those other things that were so it's so amazing to have a Sidney Crosby and an Ellie Black in our city who are seen as the top athletes in their sports in the world, in some cases in our backyard.
Yeah.
And so I think celebrating them and creating more of a wanting people to be physically activity to reach whatever goal they have is something that we can connect those dots together a little bit better than we have in the past.
Right on, Ken. Thanks for doing this, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
All right, Ken Bagnell, CEO, Canadian Sport Institute Atlantic. Thanks to Vanessa Vanden. That's on the other side of the glass. The control board is doing a fine job as always. Thanks for listening, everybody. We're back tomorrow at 10 o'clock. See you then.